Hi, I'm Randy Cothran, Managing Editor of the Spencer Daily Reporter, and I want to welcome you to our first online edition of 5 Questions With, which we hope to be bringing to you every week. Here is a special little web extra from the Daily Reporter where we'll be interviewing a local personality about an event or upcoming news item, something of interest to the general public. Of course, our inaugural show, we welcome Clay County Sheriff Randy Krukow in for 5 Questions With. He'll be talking about the upcoming jail election, which is next Tuesday, May 3rd here in Spencer, and it involves all voters in the Clay County area. We've got that interview with Randy Krukow right now. Well, Randy, I want to thank you, first of all, for joining us today on our inaugural episode of the show. And just an opportunity, of course, we got the jail vote coming up next Tuesday. Obviously very, very important from your standpoint, this upcoming election. Tell us a little bit why this is important for Clay County.
I guess there are several factors, but I guess I'll just start with, this actually started back in 2009, and actually before that, but we've been getting, our jail inspectors have been telling us, listen, you're not ADA compliant, you got the stereo issue, you can't separate out of sight and sound for females, for males. 3 classifications are sexual deviant, communicable diseases, assaultive behavior, and it's becoming increasingly hard to separate and adjust and make room to select for these prisoners. On top of that, of course, it's a facility. The facility is just plainly worn out. It's shot. And the supervisors hired a consultant, Mark Wilson out of Des Moines, back in 2009, did a complete study of the old jail. And he came up with, of course, the security, the safety issues for staff, and also the inadequate facilities, the current facilities. And he just basically summed it up and said in his report that this is an old, worn-out facility for the current use. You have to remember this jail was built in 1938, 40 years before the jail standards, and is 73 years old. And so with that in mind, of course, then we moved on to the next phase. The supervisors wanted us to get a jail committee. We had 11 members of the jail committee, citizens from throughout the county, as well as representatives from city and county, and myself, and my jail administrator. And we worked with another consultant, a separate consultant then, to come up a plan to know how big to build, the configuration, what we needed for the basics for a new jail. And so this was started, but in the meanwhile in this process, we received a letter last June, from the fire marshal telling us that we had till December of 2011 to either come up with a plan or shut this jail down. And so that's what the committee was charged with.
How much are you asking for in this vote on Tuesday, and what will that cover?
The total amount is $5.6 million. It cannot be any more than that. I spoke with the jail inspector the other day, and he said that there are several jails are being built that are coming in way under their bids. He said contractors were hungry. So, but the fact of it is 5.6. The supervisors have a option on 3.5 acres, just east of the current sheriff's office out here by across from Eaton Corporation, and that's where we intend to build it. Of course, they have an option if this isn't. If the jail issue would not be passed, of course they lose the option on that, and they'll have to renegotiate on that. But 5.6, it's a 24-bed facility, approximately 16,000 total square feet. And that will give us 24 maximum security cells. That will give us 12 an area for 12 people a day intake. And by the way, right now, Randy, we're sitting at 13 people, have been. for some time. We've been running as far as 23. I think the day that the open house, I think we were down to about 16. But that just continues to go. And so then we're also doing a separate work release area. You're seeing more and more judges sentencing into work release, which I think is a good idea. If you keep people employed, they keep paying their taxes, they're sustaining and maintaining themselves, and the taxpayers aren't doing it. So that's also an area. And then also an area, the Sally Port is large enough that down the road, if we need to expand, we can do that. We can put more cells out into there. We also have area for interview rooms, and of course then we bring the sheriff's office into that. The sheriff's office, as it is right now, this is the old rural water building. We moved out here in about 2002 out of the 1938 jail, but you've been through here. We're pretty limited on what we have here. The county is already renting space, so the supervisors and the panel, the jail committee, thought it'd be best if we kept this and then moved the sheriff's office into the jail where it should have, it should be. Even when we moved out here, it was never meant to be that we would be separated for the long run. That at some point we would get back together, and so that's what we're looking at to serve. Like I said, this jail is currently 73 years old. If it lasts, the new one lasts 50, that'd be great.
People have been critical, I think from a budgetary standpoint, about space issues. There's a lot of questions about, I heard at a couple of the meetings, the Sally Port issue came up, and do we need all this space? A lot of people want to know why we can't just build a jail and attach it to this building. What is the logic behind that? I know even some people on the committee had commented that they were concerned about space usage. I mean, are you guys this as efficient as it can be? Is there any areas where you can cut?
Right now, the committee as a whole looked at that issue, and we looked at space and the use of that space, and it really comes down to this, Randy. We are looking to the future. Right now, we're in a hallway. The deputies are in a hallway. We're using every inch of space available. Our total north bay is all evidence, used for evidence. We have a little conference room that about 8 people can get in there right now. Training, we either have to go out into the garage or we go to another building. And when you're trying to manage man hours for overtime, for training, for the meetings and stuff, it just makes sense to put it all into one. And like I said, we're not building this for just 10 or 15 years down the road. We're looking at this for, hopefully the next 50 years. And so, along with the Sally Port, we want to make sure it's big enough to get an ambulance in. In the jail tours, the jail committee members that went on those tours with us, we all found out, we got educated, that there are a lot of Sally Ports that aren't even big enough to even pull an ambulance into. And if they do, they have to pull in or back in and leave part of it hanging out. We have jail buses that we run from Rockwell City, the DOC brings in, or ICE brings in. Most of these places can't even get inside. And so we look at it as the future of maintaining the space, but also making it a workable area. And that's what the committee came up with as a whole.
What happens if the vote does not go through? You said you have till December of this year to come up with something. If the vote does not go through on Tuesday, where does that leave you and what comes next?
Well, if it does not go through, I truly believe they will shut us down. There is no fiscal way of remodeling that jail. I mean, it's on the 3rd story, 2nd story up, with the ADA rules and everything, and staff safety. What we'll have to do is we will have to move prisoners out. When they shut this down, we will have to move out to another facility. We have basically 2 hours once we're done with our investigation to get a prisoner on the road and get them to a facility. Supervisors on the committee have talked, and the committee has talked that if it does not go, we will probably still have to build a temporary holding facility. Last winter, as you know and I know, a lot of times I was calling for people not to travel and then trying to send their staff out when they can't see. That would not be a wise thing to do. We've had some estimates. Temporary holding would be only 24 hours, and then you got to move them out anyway. Remember, our daily population is 12 plus right now, and so with that in mind, you'd only be keeping them 24 hours and you still got to move them. So no cost savings there. To house them, it's $70 a prisoner, and that's today's cost. As I've talked recently with a couple of sheriffs who have said, listen, that's this year's rates. Our meal costs go up, their labor costs go up. They will have to raise those rates, and they could raise them, 70 this year, could be 80, 90, 100. There would be, I guess what I'd like people to understand, there would be no sunset in the expense. Where if we have our own facility, yes, it'll cost money, but it'll be in a bond issue and we can pay that off and then reduce those costs out. Instead of transporting them and having another county, as I've had sheriffs tell me, Sheriff, we'll take all of Clay County's tax money that you will give us. And, that's just a matter of fact. That those costs, just because the bond issue would be voted down, the jail costs will go on. And the supervisors will be forced, of course, we're going to end up transporting those. We could end up as many as anywhere from 3 to 6 trips a day or more to another facility. Closest one, they're all about 40 miles that would actually have room. I know there's a couple other jails that are closer, but they don't have the room. So we're looking at about a 40 mile one way, 80 miles a day. Don't take long to figure up when gas is approaching $4 a gallon. So
it's easy to convince the person who's on your side how to vote. Mm-hmm. Talk to me if I'm the person who is not planning right at this moment, with a few days away, to cast this. Take 30 seconds and convince me why I need to change my mind.
The costs are going to continue. Right now, we're looking at a minimum of about $400,000 plus a year for another county to keep our prisoners. You can pay that forever, or with the bond issue, if it's passed, could be paid off in 15 to 25 years. And then the facility would be here, thereby decreasing those costs. Medical is becoming an increasing liability. When we transport prisoners out, we have no control over those medical costs. In-house, you can kind of keep your eye on that, but if you're shipping them off to another facility, they're just going to continue to take them to the doctor, and we have no control over those costs. My entire budget is $339,000. Now add another $400,000 to $500,000 on that with no sunset. You add the numbers. We live in America. You can vote any way you want. Thank God we can vote. But these are the facts. This is what the Board of Supervisors will be looking at. This is it. And I myself as sheriff, or the next sheriff, or the next Board of Supervisors, or the next sheriff, or the next Board of Supervisors, you're going to have to cross the bridge eventually or continue to pay the cost.
Randy, I appreciate you taking the time to do this today and inform our potential voters and just our citizenry in general. Here with 5 questions with.
Glad to be your guinea pig.